and dancing at the holiday play rehearsal, your awe-inspiring experience concludes with the wonder of the Nativity and ice. For tickets and packages, visit christmas@gaylordpalms.com.
Stay informed on everything going on in the Villages with the Village Spectator newspaper. The Village Spectator is exclusively devoted to the Villages with news, commentary, and more. And yes, they have Tom's Picks, a free referral for people who are looking for a company to do work for them. Tom's Picks will refer the company that fits your needs, and all we ask is that you tell them where you heard about them. Call Tom's Picks at 804-1223 and pick up your copy of the Village Spectator today.
Now read Ocala Downtown newspaper online.
I can't believe career politician Rod Smith is running for office again.
That's what career politicians do.
Yeah, that and raise taxes.
Remember when Smith sponsored the largest tax increase in Florida history?
Do I?
Smith tried to raise taxes on haircuts, babysitting, laundry.
And adding insult to injury, even tax preparation services.
So Smith would have taxed us for paying our taxes?
Incredible, right?
Can he really run again? Smith already pockets a $51,000 politician's pension.
And that's on top of his $500,000 a year salary as a trial lawyer.
Smith wants an even bigger payoff?
Right. And to get it, Smith would tax us for everything, including paying our taxes.
With career politician Rod Smith, it's more taxes for us.
And a bigger payoff for him.
Learn more at KeithPerry.com. Political advertisement paid for and approved by Keith Perry, Republican for State Senate, District 8.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Maybe a month or two, maybe even longer ago than that, we started again a conversation that happens pretty much every time there's a presidential election. And the conversation is whether or not we should do away with the Electoral College. We had as a guest Tara Ross some time ago, and nobody explained the Electoral College to me better than she did. And she's on the phone again because I want it explained again. Because, you know, when I try to defend the Electoral College, I'm horrible at it. But I remember being convinced that we need this by Tara in the past. Tara is on the phone. She's a retired attorney. She's retired? Look how young she looks. Wow.
I know.
She's a former editor-in-chief of the Texas Review of Law and Politics. I have her picture, by the way, streaming right now on the video of this broadcast.
Nice.
In case you're looking at it. So she's got a book called We Elect the President. It's the story of our Electoral College, real-life modern examples of a fourth grader's view, understanding how presidents are elected, which helps me. There's another book called Enlightened Democracy, the case for the Electoral College, which is a little bit for the deeper thinkers, I guess. WeElectThePresident.com is where I got the photo of Tara on the phone right now. Good morning, Tara. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. Thanks for having me back.
My goodness. Everybody must be calling you right now to get this thing explained again, because you have to do this for all of us every 4 years.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of crazy stuff going on this year, so it's even a little bit more busy than normal, I guess.
And with the race so close, it could be one of those circumstances where a week from, next Wednesday, we could be arguing that the popular vote is what should have won, and the Electoral College is what did win. And of course, I'm not saying who will win, but because it's anybody's guess right at this point. But so help us out. The Electoral College. Do we need to go way back to the founding fathers to understand this?
Well, I think the most important thing to understand is that the founders were not trying to create a pure democracy. No matter how often you hear that in the news or how often, we're spreading democracy around the world. Well, the founders wouldn't have totally agreed with that. They would have said, yes, we want to be self-governing, but we also want to have checks and balances in our Constitution. Because if you have a simple democracy, of course, then 51% can rule the other 49% all the time, no matter what, no matter how crazy that 51% is.
Yeah.
So they knew, voting is great, self-governance is great. Also, you need checks and balances, and you need, just like you need checks and balances to rein in government officials that are running amok, sometimes you need checks and balances on pure democracy too, just to make sure that you don't have a bare or emotional majority tyrannizing over the rest of the country.
All right, I want you to be my teacher and tell me what I got right and what I got wrong with the following sentence, okay, or two sentences.
Okay.
I think it's two sentences. Our congressmen, senators, and representatives, they are voted in a democratic way. But our president is the Democratic Republic, right? Am I right about that? Because the popular vote gets the representatives and the senators, but it's the electoral vote that gets the president, right?
Right. What's interesting about your statement is that it probably is more or less true today, but it didn't used to be true. And it wasn't true before the 17th Amendment, which changed the election process for senators. The senators were originally supposed to be a much more Republican, small r, body, deliberation, compromise. They were representatives of the state. They were not representatives of the people, which sounds silly to modern ears, but actually, if you think about it, you want representatives for the state in Congress, because otherwise you have the federal government doing things like passing down unfunded state mandates. Just telling the states to go do stuff and not having to worry about how to pay for it or how much the state legislators are going to have to tax you to get that done.
Right.
So the senators were a protection for the state interest, and they were selected by the state legislature, and they were not democratically elected.
See, that
and I think that
knew.
was better. That was actually better. So again, to modern ears, it sounds crazy, but once you start to think about it, you're like, oh, well, maybe the state could use a protection in Congress. So it might, federal spending apparently skyrocketed after the 17th. Shocker, right? So the Senate was supposed to be this kind of Republican, small r, deliberative, compromise, representative of the state, kind of, statesman-like. And then the House was supposed to be more just purely Democratic, as you were describing, one person, one vote kind of representation.
I'm going to go out on a limb, that neither of the two presidential candidates we have right now could hold a candle to you in a debate about any of this stuff. I'm always amazed that we have people who are running for office that don't really get the Constitution.
It's so sad. I mean, I've been watching this election year and how people have, there's just so much to say, I guess, about people's emotions and how they're feeling about what's going on. But I feel like a lot of it is driven by just not understanding our system. Our schools have really not taught us this stuff. We've had so many more options along the way than we've known most of the time. Yeah. Just because we didn't know. Literally because we didn't know. Oh, we could have gone, there was another third branch in the road, I hope this sparks a desire to learn more about our system. I think it would be a great silver lining of this election.
I hope your book should be in every classroom. Even though it's designed for a fourth grader, I think a 61-year-old man, that's me, I think I will benefit from reading it. I really do.
Well, so I've been giving talks using this book in 4th grade, 5th grade classroom, even up to 8th grade sometimes. But I've been giving talks, and I see the teachers in the back, or sometimes parents, that are listening, and they always come up and tell me I learned something I didn't know.
Yes, so I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to put the picture of the book on here, but I guess it's a different file format. So I have a picture of you. If you're looking at the streaming video of this interview, then you'll see the photograph I have of Tara Ross. All right, so be my teacher again, and I'm going to say something, because this is what I say to the listeners, because I try to remember what you told me before. So how am I doing on this statement?
Okay.
The Electoral College needs to exist, because if it didn't, then the candidates would only need to campaign in New York and Los Angeles and Chicago, and they wouldn't need to worry about little old Ocala, which is where we are,
right.
or any little town. Why is that? Is that true, and why is that true?
Yes, I do. That was good, and I liked that you said the names of cities instead of states, because sometimes say, well, they go to the big states, and I don't think it's that simple. I think they would go to the big population centers. I mean, if you're a candidate and you need millions and millions of votes to win, why would you go to a little town? Sometimes I use the example of there's a place called Earth, Texas. Did you know that?
No.
Why would you go to Earth, Texas? It doesn't make any sense. And I mean, there's like a couple hundred people there. I mean, those people would, you might have a great time, you might have a great rally, and you get 200 votes, but you could go to Houston and you could get millions of votes. And not only that, but you'd throw, like you can imagine George Bush several years ago just giving the oil interest anything they want, because if he can get them excited and pouring out into the polls in Texas and Houston, like that's gonna mean a lot, and the interest of the smaller areas they wouldn't. Like, why would you bother? It's just bad strategy, It's not even ill-intentioned. It's just you've got limited time, limited resources, limited money, and so you're gonna use it where the most people are.
But Donald Trump showed up here in Ocala. Ocala has, what's our population? 55,000.
Yeah,
it's not a big town, but he showed up here. So that kind of speaks to your point.
Right. Right.
Okay, but why? I don't know that I understand why. How many electorates that we have in Florida?
I think you have 29.
29. And the mission is... And so whoever wins Florida gets all 29, right? Is that how it works?
Right, which is determined by the state legislature. They could change that anytime they wanted to. But most states have said it's winner take all. Whoever wins the state gets all of our electoral votes. There are two exceptions to that rule, but most states have said winner take all.
Okay. So how does it work? I'm trying to figure out, if you went to Miami and Tampa and the big cities in Florida, you could probably do enough to get those 29 votes, but yet they do show up in the small towns.
Right. So, I mean, it's probably because... So you make a fair point. I think if you look at a state like New York, the rest of the state really does feel really ignored compared to New York City. And that's a problem in New York. And I'm not trying to pretend like it's not. It's just that you could limit that dynamic to one state, or you could have that dynamic nationwide. Instead of New York controlling New York State's, I think it's like 25 votes, then they'd have a much bigger outsized influence on the whole country. you know. So compared to now, you guys are a swing state, and it's pretty close, and so you can see why they're probably kind of all over the place, because they're trying so hard to get those 29 votes. But another example of the influence a small state could have in the process is if you look at a state like Utah this year. Okay, Utah has 6 electors. They've been considered a safe Republican state for forever, but now all of a sudden they look like they're in play. And they're in play because a third-party candidate, Evan McMullen, looks like he has a pretty serious shot at taking those 6 votes. Well, those 6 votes matter to the Republican Party right now. I mean, they need those 6 votes. And so even though it's only 6 votes, but can you imagine in a popular vote if anybody would ever care what Utah did or didn't do? They wouldn't care. It's not very, they just win. There's not that many people there. It's easier to go someplace else. Or you look at a place like Iowa or New Hampshire or some of these places that have been, they don't drive everything. They don't, but they have a little bit more to pull back the majority than they would otherwise.
You do something very unique with your book. You have a 4th grader named Emma, and you were able to have conversations with her.
The last part cut out. The conversations that I've had with Emma about the book?
Yes.
Yes. It was fun to work with her. So she has her job in putting together the book was to help me come up with examples for things that 4th and 5th and 6th graders are thinking about right now. Like, what kind of example can I throw you that takes this kind of intangible concept that I'm talking about in the election and drill it down into something that you'll understand. So, for example, one part of the book is talking about how we had no representation in Parliament and we were getting taxed, and that's one of the causes of the American Revolution. So Emma's Corner said, one day we were voting on what book to read in class, and I voted for Charlotte's Web, and that was great, and Charlotte's Web won. Hey, isn't it good that the teacher didn't say only the blonde kids get to vote? Right, which is kind of similar to what was happening. So that's what her section is.
The blonde kids.
To come up with examples.
It's kind of funny. All right, so let's take a break, and on the other side of the break, because I see some people trying to call in, and I was just avoiding the phone just for a little while because I wanted to hear from you. But maybe I'm thinking somebody wants to argue with you about the Electoral College. So what I'll do first, before I let anybody on, is get you. I want you because you hear the arguments all the time. So tell me the argument on the other side of the break that you hear, and then the reply to it, and maybe that'll cut back on some of the calls. Just because otherwise it's going to be all phone calls, and I don't want that. All right, so we'll take a little break. Tara Ross is on the phone. She is our go-to lady when it comes to understanding why we have an electoral college, and she helps us learn about this. This is an amazing thing. Are we the only country that has that? Are we? Oh, I don't. Oh, is she still there? All right, we'll take a little break. We'll be right back. I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. On this Thursday, a mix of clouds and sun. There can be a shower in spots along the coast during the morning hours, the high 80 to 84. Clear to partly cloudy Thursday night, low 60 inland, 66 on the coast. On Friday, intervals of clouds and sun with a shower or thunderstorm in the afternoon, the high 81 to 85. Saturday, partly sunny and breezy. There may be a shower, high 77 to 81. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Are you in need of custom screen printing, embroidery, or promotional items? Then look no further and come visit the brand new Legacy Team Sales. LTS is conveniently located off 17th Street next to Armstrong Homes in beautiful Ocala. We offer the best prices and highest quality products for your company, team, school, or nonprofit. Whether looking for screen printed shirts, embroidered polos, or travel team uniforms, you'll be sure to find it at Legacy Team Sales. Come visit our new 27,000 square foot facility. Our friendly and knowledgeable sales staff will assist you in every part of your custom purchase. LTS carries the hottest brands in the industry like Under Armour, Russell, Mizuno, Asics, Badger Sports, Gildan, Pacific, Ogio, and many more. At LTS, screen printing embroidery is done in-house and we guarantee customer satisfaction. Stop by, give us a call, or check us out on the web at shoplts.com. Remember the name, LTS.
The very best in quality is Captain T's Upholstery.
Hey, this is Dan. Let me ask you a few questions. Does your boat look better with the cover on? Has your car's interior seen its better days? Stop using a towel to cover up those rips in the golf cart. Isn't it about time you had it restored to better than new with a custom upholstery from Captain T? Captain T's Upholstery has been right here in Ocala for nearly 20 years, so they know how to make your ride one of a kind. Whether you want to take that classic ride back to a factory look or put your favorite sports team front and center, Captain T's Upholstery is who to call. 352-369-1810. That's 352-369-1810. Or stop by their location, 5030 South Pine Avenue in Ocala, just past the drive-in. And of course, don't forget to visit them on the web, CaptainTUpholstery.com.
The very best in quality is Captain T's Upholstery.
Immerse yourself in a creative blend of art, music, and culture at the 35th Annual Downtown Festival and Art Show, November 5th and 6th in downtown Gainesville. Explore a stunning collection of artwork by 240 artists and marvel at world-class paintings, vivid photography, unique sculpture, dazzling jewelry, and so much more. Enjoy continuous entertainment on 4 stages all weekend, including a downtown blues concert on Friday night. And bring the kids for free art activities at the Children's Imagination Station. For more information, call 352-334-ARTS.
See, this is such a great conversation, and I'm really not qualified to argue about the Electoral College, but Tara Ross is, and so she's on the phone with us, and we've invited her just for this very purpose. Okay, so we have a gentleman out there outside the window. We broadcast from the mall, and he brought in a note, and I'll read you the note, but before I do, could you tell me the most common argument you hear that you have to address or explain?
Usually people say something like, oh, it's only about the swing states. You know, we don't matter here in a safe state. You guys may care less about that being in Florida. But that's usually what people tell me. And I say, look, safe and swing states change all the time. And I think the example we mentioned earlier about Utah is like, you know, Exhibit A in that. Other examples are things like West Virginia, which was a safe Democrat state, when it flipped for George Bush in the 2000 election and gave him the election. You know, it was just a handful of electoral votes, but it was a safe state that the Democrats had just not paid enough attention to, and finally they got so discontent, they were like, we're done with you, and now we're voting Republican. And they've been voting Republican pretty much ever since.
Oh, wow.
So there are lots of examples like this in history. historically. I think this year we may see, we're seeing some interesting changes. There's talk of Texas being more of a lean Republican than a safe Republican. Utah, of course, and there's lots of examples like this. But you can go back in history and look at the fact that Texas used to vote Democrat all the time. California used to vote Republican all the time. Even voted for George H.W. Bush.
Yeah.
I mean, so this stuff changes.
All right, let me read the note from the gentleman outside the window. He wrote, only need 22% of popular vote to win Electoral College if you win the right states, and that's a problem. Can you address that statement?
So in order to do that, you would have to basically win a handful of the biggest states, like the 11 biggest states. But in reality, and mathematically what he has said is true, but in reality, if you are the kind of candidate who has built such a broad coalition that you can get California, Texas, and New York to vote for you all at the same time, like you're doing something right. And also you probably got a whole bunch more states with you than just those top 11, right? And in fact, if you look at historical results, that holds true. I mean, the only candidates that win all 11 of those states are candidates that are winning in relative landslides. So it's what he said is mathematically true. It's just that you have to kind of take real life practical considerations into it too. And in real life, those states are really quite diverse states, and they have diverse interests and needs. And if you're making all of them happy at the same time, then you're probably a well-rounded candidate.
What I love about our conversations, Tara, is that you're never leaning one direction or the other. Whatever your politics are, we can't figure them out.
I'm glad.
And that's a good thing, yeah, because I want this to be about the Electoral College and about the process by which we vote for a president. Let me take a phone call. Good morning, and I'll have to, if you're calling in, what I have to do is let you ask the question, and then I'll lower the volume on yours, so you won't be able to ask a follow-up, simply because otherwise there's too much echo. I don't know why, but that's my problem right now. Thank you for calling. You're on the air with Tara Ross.
Yeah, I am an elector for the Constitution Party of Florida. If Darrell Castle wins our state, I cast one of the votes. How many times have you had an elector call into one of these? And I'll hang up and...
There you go. Okay, so does each party have their own electors, Tara?
Yes, and so that's a good point. I'm glad he said he's for the Constitution Party. And the answer to his question is, one time I gave a talk, and an elector came up and talked to me, and so that makes 2 electors I've met this year. but he's bringing up a great point, which is something that people don't always realize. You're literally voting for different slates of people. Okay, so there are. I'm in Texas. We have 38 Republicans who are ready to go vote for Donald Trump. There are 38 completely different people, Democrats, who are ready to go vote for Hillary Clinton, and there are 38 people, as the caller noted, for each of the third parties. So if sometimes people worry about, these electors are just going to go haywire and they're going to start voting, crazy. So, that's historically, and because of the way the electors are selected, it's not a real danger. Historically, we've had fewer than 20 indisputably faithless electors. And it's because, at the end of the day, you're voting for a party, you're voting for a slate of people who have worked for the party, who have, probably made phone calls, pounded the pavement, done all of these things for that nominee. And so when they are elected by their state, they're happy to go vote for that nominee. Now, this election has been a little crazy, and you can talk about things like, if somebody gets indicted or something, like what,
right.
Can the electors change? The answer, so there's a couple answers to that. One is you got to look at state law and see what laws do or don't bind the electors. But also, the state legislature, in many cases, could redirect electors if they wanted to, and just say, well, hey, she's been indicted, go vote for Kane, or something like that. The state legislature has lots of power here, a lot more power. I mentioned earlier that people just, because we don't understand the system, we don't realize we have so many options.
Right.
The state legislature has a lot of options to direct its electors and do what it wants to do. And I guess the final point I will say, though, is I really think it's important that if any change is made, it's run through the state legislature. The electors might have a constitutional right to just vote however they want to vote, and it's never been proven one or another. It's just legal scholars sometimes say that. But I think since we don't know who the electors are, it used to be you would go to, and the electors' names were on the ballot, and you knew who you were voting for. You knew in advance. You knew their names. You knew what they had or hadn't promised. In Alabama in 1960, there were a bunch of electors that said, well, we're Democrat electors, but we're not voting for John F. Kennedy. And that's what they did. But you knew that, and so we don't live in that system now. It's hard to find the name of your electors. It is just difficult. And so I think if we want to, it is better, in my opinion, for anything that happens to go through the state legislature. And if we need to have a discussion about that, then have a discussion. But let's do it through the state legislature, where the voters can have input and they can call their reps and say, hey, that's one too far for me. Could you, redirect the elector this way? But that all has democratic legitimacy, I think, in a way that just random faithless electors that you've never met before, don't know anything about, didn't know their name. So.
The Electoral College is absolutely something that's going to be argued in about 6 days from now. I have a feeling.
I know.
I have a feeling.
I think you're probably right.
So, Tara, I'm glad that you were able to come on to talk to us about this. We have like a minute and a half. Is it possible, with in a minute, to tell me the answer to this question? The question that comes up a lot is, we needed the Electoral College in the Founding Fathers' days, but because of modern technology, we don't need it anymore. What's the answer to that?
The answer to that is that the founders did not create the Electoral College because they didn't have an internet yet. They created the Electoral College because they understood human nature. They understood that power corrupts. They understood that people are imperfect. They understand that people, they might have good intentions, but then the power will go to their head. And they understood what we talked about earlier about democracies sometimes getting too emotional. And so they knew that we needed checks and balances, and they provided us with those. And you know what? Humans are still imperfect. The power still corrupts. All this stuff is still true.
Tara, my gosh, the candidates should hire you 2 years before they ever put in their name, and that way, in 2 years' time, you could have taught them what they need to know for all of the answers to the debate questions. Thank you for being on the show. Go to weelectapresident.com. Is there any other website we should talk about, Tara?
Oh, you can go to my website if you want to check it out. It's just taraross.com, TARAROSS.com.
Okay,
There's lots of historical stuff and Electoral College resources and all that sort of good thing.
Tara, you're amazing. Thank you so much for being on the air with us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we will take a break. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Cubs fans ecstatic after their World Series win, a first in 108 years.
Guy in the river, Cubby Blue, I think, yeah.
This reaction outside Wrigley Field, where streets have since reopened, where many Cubs fans remain just to soak it all in.
Fox Radio's Jeff Manasso, the 8-7 win over Cleveland, coming in the 10th inning. No formal charges filed yet.